Three friends boarded Disney's galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon. Hello and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge, only Galactic Starcruiser Superfan podcast on the interwebs. I'm Galactic Starcruiser Superfan Drew, and with me are...
Superfan Christine.
And Superfan Martin.
This week's episode, we went back to the Facebook groups. There's so many amazing Starcruiser Facebook groups. If any of you are on Facebook and are not participating in some of these communities, you're doing yourself a disservice. One of the Facebook groups that we're excited to share with all of you is the Starcruiser Suitemate Finder. And Martin, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about this Facebook group?
I sure can, Drew. Is one of the things that comes into the conversation about Galactic Starcruiser all the time is the cost.
Sure.
And for some people, the cost is just prohibitive to go on their own. I mean, a suite can cost upwards of $5,000-$6,000. But this Facebook group, the Starcruiser Suitemate Finder, puts like-minded folks together and kind of cuts the cost dramatically down, sometimes by, as little as 25% or even 20% of the original cost.
Sure. More people, you're sharing the expense.
Well, we've got Anthony Handley, one of the folks that runs this Facebook group, and then we've got Callie Mason and Jennifer Gatling, two folks that we found that have actually used this Facebook group successfully, found some really great folks, not just people to go with, but ended up being great friends. And let's talk all about Starcruiser Suitemate Finder. Well, Anthony, Callie, and Jennifer, welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon. And something that we like to kind of introduce our guests to our audience with is, of course, our core questions. And the first one we're going to just kind of go around the room with is, what are your earliest Star Wars memories? And why don't we start with you, Anthony?
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Big fan of the podcast.
Thank you.
I'd say that, I was 6 years old when my dad took me to see the first Star Wars movie in 1977. So I was indoctrinated at a fairly early age. But, it started there, playing with Kenner action figures in my backyard, seeing the movies, became a real core part of my life from very early age.
Wasn't it just incredible? I mean, there really hasn't been anything quite like Star Wars, where it just took over the conversation, the general, national international consensus, but Star Wars was just everywhere in 1977. I mean,
for those of us who are, especially the playground. Are you kidding me? And for those of us who were around at that time, it was a magical time.
It was
Oh yeah.
Well, Callie, what would be your earliest Star Wars memory?
Thanks for having me, by the way. I'm very excited also to be on the podcast today. My older cousins, my second cousins, they were around for the films, and they had the Kenner toys. And I used to play with them because I was an infant by the time I think the last movie came out. But because of their influence, I famously remember my cousin Aaron's German Shepherd ate Yoda, and we spent the entire afternoon following the German Shepherd around, waiting for him to release Yoda to us. We never got him back. But that continued my love of Star Wars. I watched all the movies, played the video games with my older cousins, and there we have it.
So real quick, when you say release Yoda, is this, I hope you're saying from his mouth.
It was an exit portal.
Oh, no. That's great. That's beautiful.
Okay.
That is a dedication to the toys.
Hey, man, when you get these toys so rarely at that age, you do what you need to do.
It's funny, as a kid, I mean, I'm basically the same age as Anthony was, and you really had it planned out that this is what I'm going to ask for my birthday. This is what I'm going to ask for Christmas. You had it planned 7 years in advance, that all the figures you were going to ask for. Well, Jennifer, what would be your earliest Star Wars memory?
Well, I'll echo. Thank you guys so much for having me. I certainly can't beat Callie's memory.
I mean,
but mine is that, as a child, my babysitter had two boys. And so we played together every day after school. And all they ever wanted to play was Star Wars. And because I was the girl, I always had to be Princess Leia. And I was so jealous. All I wanted was to be a stormtrooper so badly.
Nice.
I have a huge affinity for stormtroopers now.
Oh, that's great.
well, now as an adult, you can be a stormtrooper.
I can be whatever I want.
Yeah.
That's part of Starcruiser.
That really is kind of an interesting thing just from a societal point of view, how, the girls' toys and boys' toys aren't a thing for Star Wars anymore. If you see a girl playing as a stormtrooper, it's not even a thing anymore.
You don't even blink,
it's not even, and I think that's actually a really kind of uplifting thing for me to see. how we've kind of moved away from the girls' toys.
Yeah, so it's good to see progress in a lot of areas, and then sometimes not so much. But it's good to see the progress where we can.
We're going to focus on Star Wars.
Right,
That's
right,
where the progress
exactly.
is.
Right.
So let's talk about now our plethora, our riches of Star Wars that we have now. What would be your favorite medium to kind of absorb Star Wars right now? Starting with you, Callie.
I know there's a lot of hate sometimes where like Disney's take over it, but I think what they've managed to accomplish with the TV series has been so engaging because a lot of my family, my real life friends, and not my online community, they're not the biggest of Star Wars fans. Everyone's just come into the universe by proxy, right? They've probably seen some of the main movies, but when the TV shows can sit there and break down the characters on an individual level and tell like the human side of Star Wars and not just like pew pew space lasers, the sci-fi aspect. My mom, when's the baby Grogu coming back? She's so excited about Mandalorian, and she is not a sci-fi fan. And same thing with like the storytelling of Andor. You could put that in a lot of different universes, and it would still be successful. So, I think that medium has opened up the fandom to a whole new group that can find engaging that maybe not be able to follow a 9-movie story arc.
Anything that can make you fall in love with a droid? I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that.
Come on, when B2 got knocked over and you were mad. Oh, you wanted payback like immediately.
Yeah, I can't even talk about it. So how about you, Anthony?
Yeah, the obviously the movies are where I got started and kind of remain at the core of I guess my fandom. But I'd echo what Callie said about what Disney's doing with Disney Plus with the TV series. I'm also a big gamer, big fan of the book, the novels, the comics. I mean, I kind of go all in pretty much. For years that was really our only outlet to get any new Star Wars content, and we're kind of in the golden age of Star Wars now, where it's like there's more content than almost than what to do with. So it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, for sure. And Jennifer, how are you absorbing Star Wars these days?
Oh, so actually that's a really good question because I think that I represent a very different side of the Star Wars universe. I'm a newbie, I'm a novice. I, aside from having seen the movies as a child, hadn't seen anything Star Wars or really been involved in the Star Wars universe at all. I'm a huge Disney fan. And so, after encouragement from several friends this year, I literally sat down and I was sick over Labor Day weekend and took 4 days and watched all 9 movies. I was like, this is awesome. And so, of course, the next logical step was to book myself on the Starcruiser. So now I'm just starting to get into the TV series and other things as I'm being slightly, maybe a lot peer pressured by my friends to watch them all. So I'm a newbie and I think the movies are fantastic. I'm loving the TV shows that I've watched so far. And it's exciting to have this whole universe to explore.
What an incredible thing Star Wars is for a newcomer,
right?
Because there's so much content that you can lose yourself down every rabbit hole right away. There's no waiting, 3 years between movies or between seasons of a show. I mean, it's all ready to go. And what kind of universe are we living in that we could never have predicted that we'd be more excited to talk about a Star Wars TV show than a Star Wars movie? Who could have possibly predicted this 5 years ago? Yeah,
it'd be pretty challenging. Are you finding it fun to dig into some of these TV shows?
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm so impressed with how well everything is done. But it is completely overwhelming, I will tell you. I am overwhelmed with all the history and backstory, and it's a lot to absorb, but it's also fascinating.
That's cool. Well, this is a great segue also to our next question, and I'm going to start with you for this, Jennifer. How did you first hear about the Galactic Starcruiser?
Good question. So, being a Disney fan, I'm a big fan of the parks. So I heard about the Starcruiser when they were starting to build it, and that all the prototypes were coming out. And I thought, this is so exciting! It's awesome, but it's not something that I would have found worth it, because I didn't know the Star Wars side of things. I felt like I would have been just completely lost. But I love the idea of some, sort of immersive experience. So I just didn't think it was something for me until I, watched the movies and became a brand new fan. And then I was all in. As soon as I connected those dots pretty quickly because I just love the parks. And I'm so impressed with all the things that Disney Imagineering is able to do that I knew this would be a good experience.
Callie, how did you first hear about the Galactic Starcruiser?
So I'm a big gamer, much like Anthony, and a couple of guys in my clan in one of my video games I play currently work at Disney. I used to work at Disney, and I got a tip that they were going to build a Star Wars hotel, as we now know the terrible branding. But as soon as I heard those words, I was subscribing to every newsletter that would tip me off that when it's going to be here. And so I just followed. And then when Star Wars, I think .com dropped it and Disney dropped it, that it was coming, I just started scouring all the information I could. And I was like, man, I better start saving my squishy space money now, my flan for this, because I knew it was going to be a mint, and it was more than I expected. But I knew how to do it once I heard about it. Even if it had been just a hotel, I wanted to go.
Yeah,
that's cool. So, Anthony, how did you first hear about the Galactic Starcruiser?
Well, I was already excited about Galaxy's Edge when they first announced the park on both coasts, and then I think it was maybe a year or two later where they announced the add-on of the, Callie, you called it the Star Wars Hotel, but, Galactic Starcruiser, and that there'd be this experience that you could, enhance your, you go to Galaxy's Edge, and now you're going to have this additional add-on. At first I thought, well, I'm at the parks all the time, a Disney hotel or a Star Wars hotel might be kind of cool, but would I ever stay there? And then when I finally saw what it was going to be, I was like, I want to be one of the first to go.
Yeah.
When was your first voyage, Anthony?
So we tried to get on the inaugural voyage, but it was sold out almost immediately. So we got on the second, I think it was March 3rd cruise, the very second public cruise.
Oh, nice. So you got to see Peter and Kitra, I think, went on from Ordinary Venture. I think Peter was on that voyage. I think he do his dark side.
They did back to back, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw him or if you saw some of the other folks. That must have been kind of fun to see those early bloggers. That must have been fun to see some of those bloggers talk about the experience, and then you could probably watch some of your experience later on.
Yeah, I think Dano and a bunch of other podcasters and other people that are in the media were there recording their experiences, and it was really cool to actually meet some of those people and have them be a part of your story as well, because everybody was obviously very early, super into it, very engaged. Everybody was in costume. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was pretty great to kind of be in one of the very first cruises. I hadn't had any spoilers about the narrative and the story yet, so it was pretty great to experience it without any external influences, as it were.
Right.
And then we'll work our way back around. But Anthony, you were also recently on a voyage, weren't you? Your second voyage then? Yeah,
just a couple of weeks ago, where I actually met Jennifer, as we'll probably talk about a little bit later. But cool. If you would have told me that I would have loved and had just as much fun on the second cruise, I wouldn't have believed you. But I mean, we had just as much fun, different experience. Met some really amazing, obviously lifelong friends now. It's pretty clear. So it was really, really great.
How about you, Kelly? When did you go?
I went I think it's the 6th or the 8th of August. So it's early August. Nice. And I actually had some fun with the Thinkmaker podcast circle because I used Sarah J. Mack as my travel agent, and she was there on her second cruise. Nice. And I got to hang out with the Princess and the Scoundrel. So I was just ecstatic.
Oh, that's cool.
Very
that's super awesome.
We're using them for our voyage number 3.
Yes.
Sarah J. Mack is a fantastic travel agent.
Yes.
She's awesome.
Well, something that's interesting about Starcruisers, going into it, everyone says this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we mean it. We honestly, we can't afford this thing twice. You get off, and you're like, I got to go back.
Got to figure out a way.
How much can I get for this kidney? Because I'm going to go back. But let's kind of talk about, Anthony, tell us about the Starcruiser Suitemate Finder itself. How and when did this idea come to be, and, what was your original goal?
Yeah, so I think it was Mike Farnham who came up with the original idea. He's the creator and the administrator for several of the Galaxy's Edge Facebook groups. And as people were talking about the cost and not having anybody to go with, he thought, oh, great opportunity to connect people that wanted to experience a Halcyon, maybe wanted to share the cost with others. So that was really the impetus, I think, for the Suitemate Finder. Really cool platform for, people to potentially make some connections and experience the ship when, they don't have a big group of people already, built in that have the money and the interest to go.
How did you get involved in the Starcruiser Suitemate Finder?
Mike's, pretty infectious with getting people excited and recruiting people to help out. And he's, obviously puts a lot of his own time and effort and energy into several of the groups. But I'm pretty active in a couple of them, the Galaxy's Edge group and then the Starcruiser group, once we went to the ship. But he pretty much just recruited me and said, hey, you're posting a lot of great content. Would you be interested in being a moderator for some of the sites? And I said,
cool.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Try to keep it very family friendly, positive note. Not that people can't be critical, but, just more of a positive vibe. At some point he just said, hey, I need some help with some administration. Do you mind, if I made you an administrator on a couple of these? And I said, sure. And it's interesting to kind of sit and watch the connections that people are making and then the joy of sharing their experience. And, a simple thing like a Facebook group as a platform that if it didn't exist, these people might not have been able to experience the ship.
Are you, you mentioned you're on the Galaxy's Edge Facebook group. Are there any other Facebook groups that you participate in?
Yeah, there's a lot of associated groups with kind of off that main one. There's also individual groups dedicated to each of the characters that you might come across on the ship, which is pretty cool. But you'll find a lot of the people in the groups that are all also on all the other groups as well. So everybody kind of knows each other, and new people come in, and it's very welcoming. But you mentioned TC Conway a little earlier, so I've actually met TC in person when he was on. Probably when he was on the ship with did you guys say that you were on the ship with him?
No, unfortunately we weren't.
On your last one?
No.
Okay.
No.
So when TC was on his voyage, I actually popped over. I live local, so to Disney
nice.
World. So
Cool.
I met him over and had a drink with him at Oga's while he was on his cruise. But he's been really instrumental in helping to maintain some of the data and some of the connection. The amount of managing that and kind of setting that up, I think, was really critical to making it. Because before it was really just, hey, if you want to go on the cruise, just make a post in the group and see if you can connect with somebody. But it's a little more organized now, and TC's been great at really helping to facilitate that.
I just love the Star Wars community. No matter what discipline you need, there's someone that's amazing at it and willing to give their time into making something great.
Well, and that's something that I didn't expect. When we did this podcast literally as a form of therapy. I mean, I can't even say that enough. In fact, we're interviewing, if you've listened to our podcast, the episode we're talking about this afterwards, we're talking to Jen Catalonia. Jen, what does she go by?
Jen Eyre.
Jen Eyre, yeah. So we're going to talk about Lart Bleed, because this was something that, you should have seen Christine and I. I remember distinctly sitting in Raising Cane's, and we're both crying, and we're both like, and
I'm just sitting there, we're going back.
That's a good place to cry it out.
Yeah, actually.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yeah, it is. So when we found the Facebook groups and seeing that this is something that's shared by a lot of people, but then you said the Star Wars community, the Star Wars Facebook, Starcruiser, whatever Venn diagram we've got going, have been just so amazing to meet folks like you guys, to meet other people who've been involved, like TC and like Jen, and it's just such a great way to connect that we didn't have 10 years ago.
Right. The positive side of social media.
Right. Absolutely.
And I will say these groups compared to like the meme groups and the bigger Star Wars groups are so much more overwhelmingly positive about community building and keeping a positive tone.
Yeah.
And there's not all this traditional toxic Star Wars fan atmosphere you tend to see in the other groups. So
and that's what I was hinting at earlier. When we make progress, we don't make progress in some things, but you're right. So real quick, Anthony, do you guys have to moderate? Are you guys trying to go in and surgically strike when people get out of hand, or?
There's a couple of flags that can come up if somebody uses maybe inappropriate language. There's a self-reporting feature if somebody wants to say, hey, take a look at this. Maybe this is maybe there's some. To your point about toxic fans, and people are just being mean for no reason. And, there's just like any of the other Facebook groups, you get an alert and you go check it out and see, hey, is this really something that should not be on the site? Or is it somebody just, maybe being a little butthurt and
Sure.
9 times out of 10, it's definitely, something that probably shouldn't be on the site. So we're, like I said, we want to keep it, family friendly and on a positive tip. So.
Well, kudos to you and everybody else who runs these groups, because like you said, Callie, they are just, I'll go on. So I try not to spam post when we promote the podcast episodes, so I try to be very selective in when I try to put things up. But I'll go on and I'll end up spending 15 minutes just reading through where people are at. And another fun thing to do is to go on to the groups and see the people who've just come off the ship and to see their pictures, and then it just reignites the spark. and it's fun to see just I love it so much. It's so great.
Yeah. Again,
Awesome. Yeah.
Between the Facebooks, between all the social media, the positive social media, and the podcast, we needed the therapy.
Oh yeah, no question.
And now there's the post-traumatic groups too.
I know, I know.
It's so interesting how universal that feeling of oh my gosh, I just left this amazing experience and I want to talk about it. And again, the Facebook groups are a great place for that.
Yeah, for sure.
You just walk around on departure day going, you have no idea how desperate you're going to feel to talk to people. And the vast majority of people in all of our circles have no idea what Starcruiser is. You can't explain it to them. So you're just desperate to find people that understand this experience.
So Anthony, what is the process for folks who aren't familiar with the Star Wars Suitemate Finder? If they join the group, what is the process for finding a Suitemate?
Yeah, so like I said, there's a couple of different ways that you can connect. Obviously, you can just create a post, in the group itself, dates maybe that you're looking at, the fact that you want to connect with somebody, that you're looking for somebody to go. But if you actually navigate over so pinned at the top of the page is a link to that spreadsheet that I mentioned that TC kind of helps maintain.
Okay.
And it lists people that have already said, hey, I want to go on a cruise. These are the dates I'm looking at. There's some notes, preferences, basically telling a little bit about yourself. But there's a link inside of that spreadsheet to a form to fill out.
Okay.
Who are you? When are you looking to go? Details about the cruise itself. Very specific about not providing too much of your own personal information and putting it out there. The point is to be able to raise your hand and say, I want to do this, and other people to say, that sounds great. You guys go off and have a DM and talk amongst yourselves and figure out your details and figure out if it's something that you want to do. So it's really just a way to facilitate a connection.
Sure.
And then it's up to the passengers to figure out, is this the right person that I'm going to, hang out with, for a couple of days? Because it could be intimidating. Yeah.
There's no question. I mean, I shared with my wife that this was a subject of what we're talking about today. And I'm not going to lie, and TC even joked about it on his episode when he discussed using the Star Wars Suitemate Finder. And there's an initial, do people who join this, is that addressed on the forum at all?
I think the spirit of the page is really to, for people to take personal responsibility and know what they're up for and what they're not up for. So
sure.
It's, I think that it's definitely something that it's going to vary from person to person, your preferences, your personality. But it all starts, I think, with, I want to go to Starcruiser and I want to find like-minded people to go to Starcruiser with. If you can make a connection, if you can talk to somebody, have a connection with them, realize, yes, this is something that this is somebody that I could, share a room with for 2 days.
Yeah.
It can be daunting, but I think a lot of the success stories also that you'll see on the page have really made people feel, wow, this is maybe a really viable thing and is valid.
Well, and I have to break in here, Jennifer, that's why I reached out to you. I mean, your post that you put on the Suitemate Finder with your pictures and just seeing how much fun, it was infectious just coming off of what you wrote. And again, and TC also, I keep going back to TC, but he was the first one to really talk about it. Yeah, to introduce us to it. And just seeing that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so what I would do. If I weren't lucky enough to have you guys who wanted to go, I'd be doing this in a second, because it just seems like such a great way for people to go on the cruise that otherwise would not have.
Yeah, this is a make it or break it again, like you said, for so many folks, one of the goals of the podcast, this week for us is just to get people comfortable with this idea that they may not have considered. So really, Jennifer and Callie, can you kind of just, what was the process from both of your perspectives, not only, at the start, but also leading up all the way to boarding the Halcyon? How did it feel? How did it go for both of you?
It was amazing. I have to say it was totally, fate, in my opinion. I feel like the pieces fell together so perfectly for us. Essentially what happened was, for me, I also live 25 minutes from Disney. So I felt like I can just go anytime. I went to the Suitemate Finder. I saw the Google Doc. I tried to fill it in, but I didn't have specific dates or, a certain time frame that I needed to go. So I did the other option that Anthony talked about, which is just I put a post up and said, hey, I would love to go. If there's a group of single ladies that would like to go, and I thought I would feel more comfortable in a room full of, ladies for safety reasons. But, because yes, I recognize that I am soliciting the internet for strangers to sleep in my room.
Right, sure.
It's a little strange.
Yeah.
But it worked out really, really well. I put a post up, and within a couple of hours, I had a few people responded saying, oh, I could do summer, or I could do this. And one person responded and said, I'll actually be, in Orlando for a conference and in 5 weeks. Could you do it then? And I was like, I could if you can. And so we instantly connected. We started messaging, and then another person responded and said, hey, you guys, would you like a third? I can do that weekend too. And the three of us were texting that next day. Literally, we had a group text where we talked about all of the specifics. And by the time, it was such kismet. By the end of the second day, we were booked. We had given each other our credit card numbers, our home addresses. We had literally solidified it. And it was clear that we all connected really well, clicked really well. Our personalities seemed to mesh. And every day for the next 5 weeks leading up to our cruise, we were talking and texting and sending outfit pictures and Googling and spending money like crazy on all of this, everything, because we had to have it all. And it was so exciting, to the point where even before the cruise, they both ended up coming into Orlando a few days early, going to Galaxy's Edge. We met up for dinner. We really had an experience together. And leading up to a boarding day was such an event. We felt so connected that multiple times we mentioned how strange it was that we hadn't met before, how strange it was that we only knew each other for a couple of weeks. And that experience has carried throughout our cruise into the next group of people that we've met. It is an incredibly bonding experience in ways that probably I can't quantify. But when you know, you know. And I agree with Anthony 100%. This is a lifelong thing.
What I love is all of us are all nodding our heads on the Zoom while we're talking. This is great. Callie, you were nodding your head a lot too with a lot of what Jennifer was saying. Was it a similar experience for you?
100%. That's kind of why I wanted Jennifer to go, because her post resonated so strongly with me. I'm like, here are these people having an identical type of bonding experience with people they had never met, months after we did ours. And it sounds like she's talking about my group.
That's great.
So it's really, really exciting. Like I kind of mentioned in the other question, I had posted because I wanted to go for my birthday. I couldn't get a group. And then one of the people in the group reached out to me, and so we've got some people, and I think they had maybe lost some members at that point, and so it was kind of maybe falling apart a little bit, and they were trying to build some momentum. And I'm definitely an organizer, so I came in. It wasn't originally my group, but I was like, okay, let's get this going. There's a Facebook group, and you could tell right from the jump. I think we called it Space Friends, and we were just texting there exactly like Jennifer was saying, posting Star Wars memes and like, here's my backstory, and like I'm already creating this character, and here's this thing I love from Star Wars. And the energy was really high. I was like, all right, well, we need to get this directed though. So I was like, let's see if we really mesh. And I was like, let's do a Google meetup and let's run through some of the questions in the document that Anthony outlined, and then stuff that I just brainstormed that like, hey, I think we're going to need to know this and hash this out. And so the energy it's like we had been friends for years in that Google meetup. It was just a natural flow of information. I started getting the data that we were going to need. And then being a Disney person, I'm used to booking my own stuff because I feel like I know a fair amount about Disney. But I was like, I think for this, because we're involving strangers, I really ought to get a TA involved. And I had seen Sarah J. Mack posting in all the different groups, and she was, one of the admin. And I saw her on a lot of the other channels I liked, like, Dano or Ordinary Adventures. And I was like, and then when I met with Sarah on video, it was another instant connection. I could just tell she got it, and her energy was so high, and it got me extra excited about Starcruiser. And I was like bound and determined I was going to make this happen. And so then somebody's got to take the point and do that that credit card, somebody's got to be the one, right? That's the hard thing with strangers. Somebody has to take on a really big load and do a lot of trusting if you don't know anybody to make that happen, because it could fall through. And so, yeah, I decided to do that. And then I did all the organizing and I got all the questions answered and kind of was that go between point person for our group with Sarah. And she just did a lot of the heavy lifting after I got those answers. And then we got to sit back and do the fun stuff, the costuming, go and making, space currency. I started Google Drive where we were learning Huttese. We had like language charts, planetary charts. We started writing out our characters. Our backstories and visual dictionaries are utterly ridiculous. I don't think they did that much pre-planning for Andor. You know what I mean? And so because 3 of us are writers. And so we went to town. So
That's
we
awesome.
kept that energy going. And then, but we decided to hang out and actually stay in the hotel room and meet up for dinner the night before we even went on Starcruiser. It was crazy. We hadn't met and it's we had known each other for months because we're communicating every day, in our, Facebook Messenger group and Google Meetups. And we checked in. And actually I had been in Texas that summer and one of the guys lives in Texas and I met up with him a couple months before we actually went on Starcruiser. So I had met one of them in person for some Mexican, but that was it. And so yeah, to have that full experience, but the excitement before, during Starcruiser, and then we went out to ate dinner together in the night after, even stayed and did some Disney parks and hotels. We kind of went our different ways, but some of us met up for Epcot or dinner things afterwards. And now we continue to talk. And again, I thought it was going to be a once in a lifetime experience. And we're already can we save up enough money by January 2024? We're already cutting Starbucks coffee and trying to save to make it happen again, because we want to continue our stories. We built these characters and we want to keep our story arc going. So
that's cool. You got to share some Tex-Mex in Texas and some Mustafarian bread in space. So you've got cuisine covered. This is good. I love
full
it.
galaxy, full circle.
That's great.
I can't tell you, I am so excited for this episode because there are so many people that have commented back, or that
it's too expensive. We can't figure it out.
Exactly. And before this, group came into our heads, it was well, that's really weird to just try to reach out to somebody and say, hey, you want to share a room?
Yeah, there's a hump you got to get over, right?
Exactly. And this just makes me so excited to be able to tell people, no, you don't need to worry about it. This is the portion you need to save for. It's not the whole trip, and here's how you make it happen. Make it happen.
Again, I didn't even know this sort of thing was a thing. So it's great to be able to, produce some content to let people know about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just love the fact that Galactic Starcruiser, I mean, when a movie comes out and a TV show comes out, we're not writing insane elaborate backstories or doing incredibly elaborate character videos. You might costume up for a premiere or whatever, but this is we're able to just go so deep into our love of Star Wars because, the tagline, live your Star Wars adventure. This is the one thing that actually meets that expectation.
To go be in Star Wars for a couple of days. Right. You could be in Star Wars.
You are the lore.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, Star Wars is about you for those days, and that's just a magical thing.
Yeah, on one of the sublight circles, one guy said, does this mean I'm canon? And the answer is yes, you are.
You are.
Yeah. So once everybody got on board with their respective groups, any hiccups or anything that you didn't think about prior to that once you got on board, you were okay, we need to work through this together? Jennifer?
No. I mean, no. We were 100% all in. I think, for us, the experience just continued like a magical snowball. It just continued from minute to minute to minute. We boarded, we checked into our room, we kind of sort of figured out where everything was going to go, and then we were out and running because we wanted to get out there and meet people. We went to the Sublight Lounge, and there was this lovely little table open next to these 3 lovely individuals, and we asked if we could sit down. And from there, we met Tony and Mike and Liz, and we became 6. And then about 2 hours later, we met Carlos and Charles, and we became 8. And by 7:00 on that first night, the 8 of us were formed as a fully formed group. It was fantastic. And we have not missed an hour of talking to each other every day since.
Oh, that's great.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Truly incredible. But no, we didn't have any issues. Nothing that sticks out to me that we had to overcome.
Yeah. Callie, with your group, anything?
I did think so, because we had a full 5 and we had a mixed group. That's something I didn't comment on. I was familiar with, like, camps and being in sports or theater kids and, camping with me. I'm what they used to call like a tomboy. So I wouldn't have cared if it was a group of 4 guys and me. It wouldn't have bothered me.
Mhm.
But I ended up having one girl and then the rest were guys. So we had a mixed group, and modesty was really a problem, but you do have to kind of figure out the logistics of like, who's a morning person? When are we going
Sure.
to take off showers? We can't all
Sure.
take 5. Who's going to take the bunk? Who's going to take that one little one that's clearly for a kid? Who's short? I'm sorry. Some people have to make sacrifices where you got to be moving like all the amount of luggage we had from being
Yeah.
customers. Like we could
Right.
barely like walk in our. So maybe
Yes.
some of those things you can think about at a time. We did, but we just kind of think had some communication on who was going to be where. But we worked it out. It wasn't a big deal. You just go with the flow because time is money. Time is of the essence on the Starcruiser. You get it out of the way and you go into the action.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, and one thing too that we've said before is that you're in your room this much.
Yeah.
So the room is where you crash at the end of the night, and then you wake up and you're out as soon as you can. So you're barely in that room, really. So Jennifer, do you have another voyage planned?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we do. We did not. I mean, we got off the Starcruiser with pretty much the 8 of us committed to coming back for the May the 4th voyage.
Oh, that's great. Oh, we're
you
excited.
there.
For some listeners who don't know, yeah, we're going on that voyage, so that would be spectacular. That's super awesome.
Awesome.
How about you, Callie? Are you going to go again?
Yeah, I think tentatively we are trying for, like I said, January of 2024. Gives
Oh,
us plenty of time to save it up again. Because
Nice.
we really run the gamut, our group, from like I think mid to late 20s to like I'm not going to out anybody. I'm not quite the oldest. I think there's somebody like in their mid 40s, and so all income levels, all from literally San Francisco to Connecticut. I mean, the entire breadth of the United States. We got covered Texas, Midwest. So I think need that extra time, and I'm not sure if everyone will get to go, but I think at least 3 or 4 out of the 5 of us should get to do it. We
That's
all
awesome.
want to do it. It is,
Sure.
it is a little cost prohibitive.
Oh
but
yeah. I mean, this doesn't make it free when you go for a group. You
No,
still got to save a chunk of
sure.
cash for sure. But that's cool that you're looking to go again.
Oh, absolutely.
Anthony, you've been on 2 voyages. Are you're going to be a part of that group on the May the 3rd next year?
Yeah, we had actually before we went on our second cruise, we had already booked the 3rd to the 5th voyage because we thought this is we could do this every year. This would be fun. And when we didn't really have a winter or a fall trip around the holidays, my birthday was in November, and so we kind of decided, well, we're right here. Let's just go ahead and go on Starcruiser again right now. We're kind of humming and hawing, and so we pulled the trigger. And I'm so glad that we did. Meeting Jennifer and the others, we had such an amazing time. So coming off of the cruise, we're standing out, waiting for our cars. Everybody's hugging, we're crying. Nobody wants to we don't want to let each other go. And just over the next maybe 24 hours, people started saying, when are we going back? When are we going back? And we said, well, we already booked the May the 3rd through the 5th cruise. You guys should jump on it. And I think within 48 or 72 hours, everybody had basically committed and had called and booked.
That's awesome.
And so we're all, as Jennifer mentioned, all 8 of us, we're already booked and super excited about it. So we're starting to figure out, what's our theme, and we're all going to kind of, maybe do a little bit of some group play with our costumes and do some fun stuff.
That's great. Well,
Awesome.
before we talk, I do want to talk spoilers with you guys and hear some of your favorite moments and so forth. But before we have that conversation, the closest thing that I can think of to the relationship with strangers, and we've mentioned it on the podcast before, is summer camp. And when I'd go to summer camp as a kid, I would go in and I'd make what I was sure were going to be lifelong friends. When you're a child, sometimes, in 3rd grade, your lifelong friend turns out to last until 5th grade, maybe until the next year you see them at camp. But is that analogous to this? Is that the same thing that you guys have experienced? Jennifer, how about you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I certainly had a little bit of anxiety as we ended, thinking, well, this was so great. Surely, we won't keep up this level of communication. The first few days, we were so excited to talk.
Right.
I think our group photo album has like 1,200 photos in it. Right. I thought surely it would fall off. But it hasn't. It's morphed into us now talking about our daily lives and what's going on at work. And it's truly morphed into friendship.
That's awesome.
And that feels phenomenal. It really does. So we'll see, what the next few weeks bring or the next year. But as we're planning to do this again, I thoroughly anticipate that this is real.
That's awesome. Callie, how about you?
I do think that's a pretty good analogy because, you have this quick bonding experience and then memories for a lifetime. I also played a ton of sports growing up, so maybe sports camps because they tend to be shorter, but they're incredibly intense and a little bit isolating. Almost how you get, the reality shows, they strip away the phones and everything, and you get these like intense emotions. And even though you're on your data pad, you're not. I don't know if y'all had time to be messing around on Twitter or checking with your family. I was like, I'm sorry, don't expect to hear from me. I'm in space. Like, I'm there on the data pad app and almost nothing else on my phone. You just don't have time to breathe or move. But it is still totally unique because, camp is usually over a week and it's a little bit more laid back. This is hyper intensive and you have the backing of all of your childhood memories or whenever you came into Star Wars, the fandom. It you spoke to it's nobody else really gets the experience when you get off of it. If they haven't been on it, it's really hard to describe. So it's kind of like an insular, like a sport that only like a couple of thousand of you play or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a little unique.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy. We were also likening it to, you hear these stories about people that, have some type of almost a traumatic experience, and connect and are bonded, for the rest of their lives. So it's the opposite of that. I mean, obviously there's no trauma, but it's that level of intensity. It's, as Callie said, you're packed in for a couple of days, you're running around, you're excited about the adventures, you're back and forth. I mean, we would be out adventuring for a couple of hours, then we'd pop over to the lounge for a cocktail, and then we'd go out and adventure for a little more, for a little while, and then go back to the lounge for another cocktail. And so it just, kind of just having like those quiet moments, and then also those intense moments where you're interacting with the rest of the crew and the other guests, and then the cast as well. They've really done something special with this.
I mean, the one thing that just always comes back into my head, and I'm going to show my age here, but from the 1979, the original Muppet movie, Gonzo has that one line in a song, "There's not a word yet for old friends who just met." And that just encapsulates so perfectly. I'm so grateful to Starcruiser for giving so many people those connections.
I think that's what I said as we were leaving and standing in front, and as Tony mentioned, hugging and crying. And I was overcome with emotion. And I just kept looking at him and saying, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And that really encapsulates the whole experience for me.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if Disney anticipated this. I think that the LARPing community that Disney brought on board to help create the experience and kind of those LARP, they're obviously familiar with this concept of how, play acting in an intense format for a couple days can, create emotions and create connections and create something that wasn't there before. But I wonder if Disney, now that they have the benefit of almost a year of people doing this, as we're closing in on the year anniversary next year, you wonder if they've looked at this and said, well, I wonder if some of them said, how can we make money off this? But then I wonder if that's an unexpected benefit. Well, it is for us, but I wonder if it's something that Disney anticipated,
I'm not sure. I mean, how do you quantify such an intangible thing? I mean, I love the theme parks. You love it. I mean, before Starcruiser, we've been friends with Drew for years. We would go out to lunch and just talk about theme parks and like theorize about operational stuff about the Disney parks and other parks. We love the theme parks, but it never did this.
No, it never did.
We never said we have to do a podcast that takes over our entire life about the Matterhorn.
I was going to say we never bonded over Space Mountain and then started crying as we realized there's two seats side by side at this park.
And we do, again, the parks are amazing, but I can't imagine that they could have foreseen how deep this goes, and maybe they did.
Again, the LARPing community 100% did. You know that they did, but yeah.
I just...
And we're dying to talk to some of the cast and crew. I mean, we've been working and just discussing. We don't want to talk secrets. We don't want to talk, anything we don't need to know. But I'm dying to know if those actors who play the various characters, they must feel this in a way that they haven't felt with other roles. Because you bond in theater. Callie, you mentioned you're a theater kid. I'm a theater kid. You bond in that when you have the play. but then it usually kind of dissipates. But these people are in it and making relationships over and over it. It's like a Michael Crichton novel. I wonder if something bad's going to happen.
we did hear that they actually have a counselor to help them get over, because it's so emotional for them. They have to be in it just as deep as we are to sell that emotion.
Yeah.
And and they have to be clear of that and ready to go for the next people.
Right.
As soon as the next day.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing.
what they go through to produce this experience is so incredible. What an accomplishment.
And just like us, I can't imagine that whenever, when you're doing it every day or every time you're on the ship or whatever, but when you're doing it all the time, I'm sure there are parts of it, just like any job, that are somewhat repetitive. And it's not that you're sleepwalking through it, but you're going through the motions and whatever that you normally do. And then you come across that passenger that just flips what you've done up until now. And now I can imagine them being like, I'm going to need a moment, and walking away and being like, ooh, I need to get my act together, because that was a lot, even for them. I mean, they're used to interacting with each other to an audience that is separate from them. And this audience is close enough to hug you. And, you can see the tears and you can see the smiles, and good on them, because it's a lot.
I think that really resonates. The actors are so intense, and when you're on the cruiser, you're not thinking, oh, this is an actor playing a role. You believe in that time frame that they are the character, that they are in this with you and are letting you be your character and are interacting with you in that way, and remembering your name, and, running over to you, and, as you're just walking, through the ship, and having a little micro moment. I know that there's some really great actors in the world. I think that the actors and the crew on the ship are so incredibly talented and deserve so much praise. Like, just to be able to contribute that to somebody's experience, and then for that to be a part of their own personal experience as well, has got to be amazing.
Yeah, you hope that as much gushing, that everybody who has been on the Starcruiser, that they feel that they hear that and see that, and know that, like everybody, if you got a lousy day at work, you're like, ugh. But then you can go and you can see a whole lineage of people that are saying, you're awesome, we love you, you've made our experience everything. It's, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think Disney both did and didn't know what they were getting into with this, because I think the fact that they made it like 2.5 days, that was clearly an influence from the LARP. Anymore, I think, as much as we'd love to do a week of this, the emotions would just run too high. I think it's about the perfect amount of time for that intensity level and no sleep if you're going as hard as you can.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think you're just now seeing on some of this repackaging and remessaging, once they've heard from those of us that have been on it, they kind of missed the mark and stumbled out the gate with the messaging, people thinking it was just a Star Wars hotel. And now that they've, I think, heard from the fans and kind of the LARP community what it really is, it's an experience, and they've sold it that way much better of late. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Most all of the negative things you hear about Starcruiser and how it gets misconstrued are from people that have never been. If you go, I have almost yet to hear anyone say, I want to go back, because it's so incredible. And they've captured that. And while there has been nothing like Starcruiser, I will say, as a Disney kid of I consider the great heyday of I was an Epcot kid. I was a nerd. Things like Horizons, Communicore, the original Journey into the Imagination, that was stuff that made me want to work for Disney. It inspired me, like the imagination and creativity. And I always hoped to get to this point. I thought it might have been through virtual reality or something, but to see where we now are with Starcruiser, I couldn't have dreamed of that arc of where we're now at with what Disney has done with it. And I think only a company like Disney could pull that off. That's the thing. As much as people hate Disney's influence with Star Wars, that's where that can happen. It's such a novel concept, unless you want to stay Westworld. I mean, no one has really done this yet in this type of space as big and as grand as they did it.
And no one else could.
No, they wouldn't have the money to. And this is kind of almost an aside, but also tied in with the actors. We, a couple of us here, because we wanted to see if we could break the actors even for a moment. And it was such like a personal moment of gratification just to see that little twitch to their eye where like they laughed at something we did, where like they kind of dropped being, Croy for a second. Because anybody can, I'm not gonna say anybody, a lot of people can act in front of a camera or to do it on a stage, but to have the level of improv skills and the things that these guys can remember, holy cow! That is an incredibly unique talent, and these people are otherworldly at it. I've had, I'm sure some of you have made friends with some of the actors maybe now, like through social media. I've got a couple, and when one of the actresses that played Captain Kevin found out that our group was a group of randoms from like a cabin finder, she was like, I am mind blown. You guys didn't know each other before this? I thought you had known each other for like a decade.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, no.
That's awesome.
We just came together like that, to make our characters all work together. And so that was pretty gratifying. But these people are otherworldly with their talents of improv.
All right, well, this is the part of the show for the folks who don't like spoilers. I'm going to say that we're going to leave you behind and bid you a fond adieu. But Anthony, I'd love to hear, who's your favorite character on the ship and why?
It's got to be Wraith Cole. We actually had different actors for all of the major roles.
Wow, that's
between
cool.
the first cruise and the second cruise, and absolutely loved all of the actors on our first cruise. And on the first cruise, I was kind of looped into the heist, with Wraith, and he was super fun and amazing. I wasn't actually intending to kind of go down that path again the second time, but the actor Jason that plays Wraith Cole, I guess he's one of the main guys that plays Wraith. He just pulled me in, and he was just so charismatic, and his energy was so infectious. And I was like, well, I guess I'm helping out the heist again, because it's like, it was like being carried along by a current. No matter what I wanted to do, it's like, that's what I was doing. So, and it just so amazing. Just some great times.
Jennifer, how about you?
I mean, this is like asking me to pick my favorite child.
I know, it's rough.
It's really hard. I had amazing experiences with all the actors. The one that I was not prepared to love as much as I loved was Croy. I mean, Lieutenant Croy, he was just phenomenal. And like Callie mentioned earlier, their improv skills are just out of this world. And the way they stay in character, I mean, I just was completely blown away by him and almost pulled to the dark side by him. Just the strength of his character alone. I thought he was just incredible.
Yeah, I also had Jason as our scoundrel, and one of my outfits was pretty full scoundrel, so I had intended to go that path, but I wanted to be main Jedi, and I was having trouble kind of breaking through with the head sergeant to get me to invite stuff, even though I went to a lot of the things. So, but he is just incredible, and it made it so much fun to be in his missions. Like I missed lunch one day. Like we skipped time in the park. We didn't go, but we were like anything secret or special that we could interact with him on. We were like, we don't have time for just Bachman and Galloway. Like space bingo, move. Like we were on a mission, his mission, and it made it so much fun. And a lot of the buzz that we still have probably are around that and the guy at tie-in. But yeah, to Jennifer's point, Croy, man, like he was so charming. He made me a double agent. I ultimately was still scoundrel and Jedi, but I don't know. Talk about full spoiler alerts. In the data pad where it tells you your familiarity and trust level with everybody. Yeah. I don't know how many people pulled this off, but I had high for every single person.
Oh, that's wow. That's great.
Across the board. So they weren't really sure who I was in with, which is dangerous. I tell people not to try to do that because you probably won't engineer it. But I loved them all. They're all incredible.
So you had high familiarity or high trust?
Both.
Wow. All the way down.
I convinced everyone that I was on their side.
Oh, that's really cool.
Astounding.
That's awesome.
And that you found a way to thread through some of the missions so that they didn't overlap. That's
incredible.
That's actually a feat.
Yeah, and that really speaks to going with a mixed group like this, because you can't really do that unless you have people doing different paths and you can a little bit piggyback and start getting connections and invites to a lot of different things. Yeah. You kind of have to have a mixed group going full force like that to probably do that.
That's awesome.
I would guess.
Yeah. I completely agree. I got pulled into certain things because my roommate was, going there, and she's like, come on. And I just got roped into different paths. I mean, I was very similar. I went in with a mindset of one path for sure and ended up doing the same, like of crossing all these paths. And it was incredible. I keep saying that, I know.
Well, because it is incredible. That's a great word for it, sure.
We get you.
It's not just the narrative, I think, that takes you in different directions. We were talking about the great performances from the actors. That I think that's definitely, a component of, what will drive you to make certain decisions or go down a certain path. And that's those actors have to feel, a lot of pride with being able to deliver not only a performance, but, an experience to the guests.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can, and I know it's a challenge, trust me, we know. Can you pick a favorite moment from your trip, Anthony? Either one, your first or your second.
Or both. I'm
or
down.
both, yeah.
I think the most touching moment, which in some ways kind of solidifies why I'm a Star Wars fan to begin with, and something I didn't expect. I knew that there was an experience that happens in the training pod with Rey. I'd heard after my first cruise, I knew that there was, again, spoilers, but I didn't anticipate that I would be a part of that, and had a really fun moment after lightsaber training with one of the Saja, and she said, please keep in contact with me. I'd like to explore what we're talking about further.
Wow.
And then I ended up in that experience with the opening of the holocron, and just the hologram of Yoda. And I was crying because it was like, Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie to this day. And just being able to now interact in a way with that character in what felt like real life, just gave me that deep connection to being a little kid again, and reminded me of why I love this universe and these characters so much. And so, yeah, I think it was definitely the holocron, opening of the holocron with Rey.
Jennifer, how about you?
I have two, I guess, because I can't just pick one.
No, that's
one
fair.
That is Starcruiser related and one that is experience related, I think. So the Starcruiser related favorite, I don't know if it's a moment or a thread, or probably I would say experience, was the fact that I felt like there was a storyline that spoke to my soul. The storyline of Gaia and the liberation of her people is something that, for me personally, as a Black woman and living in America, spoke to me in ways that was completely unexpected, so impactful. You want to talk about tears? There were tears. There were moments where, Rafe looked at me and talked to me about how, important it was that we were able to liberate, these people. And it was just unbelievably moving. So that whole thread, that's a very subtle reference.
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't even realize that that's part of the storyline. It was unexpectedly amazing.
Yeah.
My favorite moment, I think, was at the end of the second night, when the 8 of us just didn't want to let it go. And we were in the atrium all by ourselves with our lightsabers, having the biggest nerd fest ever, taking these amazing pictures. It was such a moment. It felt so special. It felt like we had this whole Starcruiser ship to ourselves in space. And just really, really touching.
I loved that.
It was so great.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had the same actress for Gaia both times. Again, Christine made a much more personal connection with Gaia than Martin and I did, I think. But I like to think that she remembered that we were there before.
I think she did.
I think she did too.
I got the nod at the beginning when she walked through, so
That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure she
Nice.
did.
And then I think there is an experience. I think that she's bringing her experience in real life into her role, and able to translate that in a way that is beautiful.
Yes.
It's nothing short of beautiful.
And I love how they mix what she brings with what Wraith brings in that same kind of moment. It's this symbiotic relationship of this emotion and this history, and then this roguish scoundrel who does what he's got to do to make this possible, and this team, this incredible team.
the other thing that's super touching is Wraith in that second voyage. He saw how much it meant to you because you were a Twi'lek as well.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying this is manipulative, but this is because this is a performance for these people. They're there to elicit emotions, and he saw that as a tool and weaved you as a Twi'lek in with Gaia and made that second cargo hold speech more impactful for everybody in that room. It was just incredible. Just incredible.
Those two characters together. I mean,
so
separately
good.
they're amazing, but those two together, what an incredible. I mean, I never would have put that together.
No, me neither.
You know, a scoundrel and a Twi'lek superstar.
But they have a familial love for each other that you can feel through both of their performances.
I love that he seems to be doing all the wrong things for all the right reasons. And that comes across so perfectly.
I love that so much.
Yes.
Well, Callie, how about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how I can't comment on what like Jennifer and Anthony said. Like, that where my heart to see your emotion, and Jennifer talked. The other girl, shout out to our captain of our crew, that went with me. She's Black and Brazilian, and she made that special connection with Gaia because she spoke to Gaia about how that she had that experience, and she felt connection to her music and what she's espousing. And so, yeah, I know how much she mirrored like exactly what you're saying. Like, it was genuine. You can't fabricate that. That wasn't really acting at a certain point. That was her lived experience coming through her character. And it was beautiful to hear. That would just even be around it. So yeah, that was so powerful. And, you know, Anthony, I didn't want to spoil anything. I think it's always more fun to be surprised. But I was like, at the cost of this trip, I don't think I could afford to have FOMO. It would just drive me nuts, right? And I know you can't do everything, but I wanted to see what was possible at the past. So I had heard that the holocron was a thing. Yeah. And that made me bound and determined, come hell or high water, I've got to see Yoda. And I did. Thank you. Thank you to my other cabin mate, Ray, the quiet one, our leader, our photographer, documenter. He was the one guy that actually got that really hard to get past, and I was able to piggyback with him and experience that.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So it was so awesome. Like, it made the whole trip worth it for me. I didn't cry because I'm not that outwardly emotional person, but inside, the little kid Star Wars fan, I was like, this is it. This is why you come to Starcruiser. And so I don't want to pick their two moments, though. I will say I kind of have two. One was I was able to have one of those one-on-one moments with Asaja in the climate simulator where you got to use the Force.
We haven't seen that yet. That's so cool.
Mine was so funny because she was like, "Are you going to be here?" And I'm like, and she went away for a bit, and then she's like, "I was the only one in there," and she came back. This was like at nighttime, pretty late at night, and the stormtroopers come in, and they're just being themselves and being wacky, and I'm trying to get them out of there because I know I'm about to have this special moment, and they just wouldn't leave. And so me and the Sanjar are having this like who's on first kind of moment with like the stormtroopers and this wacky hijinks trying to get them out of there, and so that was fun. And then I guess a group moment, you know, we did so much stuff together as this ragtag group of the crew of the Revenant, as we called ourselves.
Nice.
At the end of the night, we ended up staying up. We were kind of sad that nobody else really stayed up that late, and Sub Like Lounge was always us drunkenly shutting it down, and nobody else was up. We just wandered around our Star Wars pajamas at a certain point. But a couple other younger people stayed up with us, and we decided to pose for like a picture, and we all simultaneously agreed to say somehow Palpatine returned, and like we all just like broke up laughing after we said it to like pose for this picture. The just insanity of the Star Wars community, and I guess that's my favorite group moment.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
But here's something that I want to just congratulate the Lucasfilm story group and the Imagineers that all came up with this. We just asked several people, what are your favorite moments on Disney's Galactic Starcruiser, and not one of them said a lightsaber battle.
Yeah.
Not one of them had anything involving shooting with laser guns or flying a spaceship. It was these small character moments that just spoke to everything you are as a Star Wars fan. What an accomplishment!
Oh yeah.
I mean, the end lightsaber battle, sensational. The force pull thing got a gasp out of me.
Yeah.
But that's never my favorite thing. If I had to pick my top 5 moments, it would all be these one-on-one things, these moments where characters spoke to you. And what a thing. And that I really do believe Disney had dialed in from the conception of this. They said, we're going to connect with these people, at the deepest level of their Star Wars fandom. And they do.
Yeah. Every time. It doesn't matter if it's your first voyage, your second voyage, your third. It doesn't matter. That was the one thing that we were concerned about before we went on our second voyage is now that we know, is it going to kind of, spoil, or is it going to make it kind of meh whenever we go again, like fun, but whatever? No. We doubled down, tripled down. I mean, it was just, it made it even more amazing because we knew what we were walking into.
Yeah, the idea that knowing the story in advance, I mean, I almost liken it to, seeing a movie for the second time. It doesn't mean that you don't enjoy the movie the second time or the third time, or in the case of some of the Star Wars movies, the 100th time.
Right.
But I definitely agree that I went in with that, not worry, but, maybe anticipating that, it would be very different. And it was a little different, but still so amazing and so positive. And again, meeting the amazing friends we did along the journey was such a key part of that.
Can I just take a second and just encourage people to try to do this, to step out there, step out of your comfort zone? I think that was the absolute crux of how we made this happen, how we had these incredible experiences. I will say that I talked to some people on the ship who had no idea what was going on. They definitely thought they were coming to a Star Wars hotel, didn't really get in on the action. And by the end of the cruise, several of them have reached out to me since then to say, I would love to go again. I really want to have the interactions and the experiences that you had. But they just didn't know to do that ahead of time. Right. So if anybody's out there listening, I beg of you to just speak to people, talk to people. We met incredible lifelong friends because we sat down and just started talking to them. We had these incredibly touching moments because we opened ourselves up to that. And that is very much out of my comfort zone personally, but I'm so incredibly glad I did. I can't encourage that enough.
So Anthony, if people were interested in finding more about the Starcruiser Suitemate Finder, what's the best way to approach on Facebook? How do you get there?
Yeah, just the quickest way is if you're not already a part of the group, just go to Facebook and do a search for Starcruiser Suitemate Finder. Suitemate being one word, it'll be the first one that comes up. Join the group and reach out. So it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to all of you for joining us and taking some time on your Saturday morning here to chat with us. We appreciate it more than we can say. And again, just every time we talk with folks, literally, we're going to hang up and we're all going to say, that was incredible. That was amazing. So again, thank you for being a part of this and helping us with the podcast and sharing your experiences.
And we look forward to seeing some of you on our next voyage.
Hopefully all of you, maybe. Who knows?
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again to Anthony Handley, Jennifer Gatling, and Callie Mason for joining us for this episode. I would have been all over this. I mean, I'm lucky that you guys wanted to go on Starcruiser, and kind of that you convinced me to go on Starcruiser, by the way. But if I didn't have that, and I was super excited about this experience, what a great Facebook group to join.
I mean, I love the fact that these things exist.
Yeah, I'm so excited for people to hear this episode specifically, just because I do believe it's one of those that it's like, well, maybe, I don't know. And this is like, wow, success stories just blooming out of this Facebook group.
I really hope that this is just an aha moment for folks that have been listening, and it's fun, it's exciting. Do it. Make that jump from a listener to an actual passenger. You won't regret it.
Well, Christine, if people want to find us on the interwebs, how would they go about doing so?
You can find us on Instagram at Heroes of the Halcyon, on Twitter at Halcyon_Heroes, and you can always email us at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com.
Well, it is always fun shooting the poodoo with all the Starcruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast.
Tabuite!